we're coming to that point where these weekly updates are winding down. Why? Because the ANC's 55th National Conference is finally upon us. I'm coming to you from FMB Stadium. This area serves as the accreditation center where we're all picking up our tags in order to access NASREC, where the conference will be taking place. It kicks off this weekend. At this conference, the ANC will elect new leadership. It will also deliberate over some of its policy positions. Remember that a policy conference in July, it came out with proposals. Over 4,500 delegates, these are voting delegates, mind you, and others will have a say about policy positions. They'll discuss resolutions that need to be adopted. When they leave NASREC on the 20th of December, they'll ultimately leave with a set of resolutions, not only just new leaders, but resolutions that will guide its government in how it manages to run and control the country. Now, it's been a fractious journey towards NASREC. As I speak to you now, both candidates who are leading the race for president are embroiled in controversy and all sorts of allegations. You've got the leading candidate for presidency, Cyril Ramaphosa, who just survived a process in parliament that almost saw the launch of an impeachment committee. I'm talking about that Section 89 panel report that ANC caucus members rejected. -4 led by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. I'll get back to her, I'll circle back to that. But on the other front, in terms of the candidates for president, you've got Zweli Mkhize. Now, Dr. Mkhize is marred by controversy around the Digital Vibes scandal. This speaks to stolen public monies at the height of a pandemic in the country. So these are the two leaders who are front and center in the race for NC presidency. I want to go back to Dr. NDZ. Now, people keep saying she's got balls of steel, balls of steel. I don't think so. I think she's got ambition. I think people tend to undermine the ambition of women, and Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma showed this very week that actually, don't count me out. It might not look like I have a shot in the dark, but I'm going to create it, and I'll be defiant because I've got nothing else to lose. I mean, she's pretty much past retirement age. She is playing, really. I mean, honestly, it's one of the last plays that she could master in her campaign that hasn't done much to gain her any traction. So that's an interesting one. But of course, there'll be a clap back, a feedback, a reaction. And as I speak to you now, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, Mervyn Dex, Supra Mahuma Pilu, as well as Musebenzi Zwane. The other three are also those who defied the ANC's party line in parliament. These four people will now be referred to the disciplinary committee of the ANC. Whether there's a new leader tomorrow or not, or when we rise from this conference, is neither here nor there. That process has kicked into play. There have been written letters about the decision by the officials of the ANC on what to do. Heated conversations continue about the performance of this particular NEC. If you followed the Gauteng Provincial General Council, Panyaza Lusufi added his voice to the many who are saying that this NEC has been dismal. The NEC, of course, is the highest decision-making body in between conferences. Their time has now come to an end, and ANC branches, Amandla Asemasebeni, they take over and make a determination about where they want the party to go. But they take over with Integrity Commission reports not finalized, with the scandals around those presidential candidates, with issues around step aside in the party, with a state capture report that has not been properly dealt with by the organization. So what I'm trying to say to you is it's going to be a difficult couple of days for the ANC. This as they figure out where they want to go and who they want to see as key figures. On that first day of conference, I'd say to you, look out for nominations, sure, because there might be some surprises from the floor. I keep making the argument that the position of Treasurer General will be fought from the floor. The women in the ANC have come out quite strongly saying, actually, we don't just want 50-50 in the NEC. We want 50-50 in that top structure, those top officials of the ANC. Yes, some argue it's not a structure. The women saying, yeah, but you do so only when it is convenient. So we'll see where that fight goes. Does that mean that the ANC will come out of here with at least 3 women in the top? That remains to be seen. But I think what you need to maybe focus on a little bit is the issue around constitutional amendments. This is going to be one of the first issues that are going to be deliberated over. It'll speak about the role of the Veterans League, the issue of extending that top 6 into a top 7. It'll speak about one member, one vote, which could actually ultimately mean an end to these kind of conferences because they'll be voting and electing leadership very differently. These are just some of the issues that we put on. And the strengthening of step aside. I get tired of speaking about step aside, but step aside while there are provinces like KwaZulu-Natal that have been clear about how they don't want it, and at some point looked like their friends in Limpopo agreed. Limpopo had a PGC this week that affirmed step aside and said, no, strengthen this thing. Allow it to not be used as a factional tool. So it'll be very interesting what happens to step aside. The louder voices, mind you, have been saying it doesn't go away because the mission to renew the ANC relies on something like step aside being an instrument that the organization can use. I say you can't unite and renew an organization in one go. And there's a lot of spitty happening, mind you, in and outside of this party. Hey, people are being suspended, people are being charged left, right, and center. I think people questioning what's happened to the likes of Judge President Hlophe, what happened to Carl Niehaus, whose expulsion, I must very quickly say, did not come as a surprise. I mean, it's almost like he was daring the organization for so long, but he is appealing it, so we'll see what happens. But also seeing members like Batabile Dlamini being told, actually, you can't return to the NEC. You have a conviction, a guilty finding against you. That's over 6 months. It's that perjury matter that she sees as a minor issue that is going to cost her her place in the NEC. She has attempted to appeal, it didn't work. Tony Yengeni was also hit with the same thing, which was weird for me, actually, because the Electoral Commission came after Tony Yengeni. One, he didn't even make it into nominations. Like, Limkadile for nothing. And then he went on and he showed that his record was expunged, that he's done his work. So that not only embarrasses the Electoral Committee, but it brings into question the importance and the impartiality of its approach in dealing with ANC members. I also have to very quickly add that the generational battles will also be playing themselves out this coming weekend. Different generations want to get their hands on the levers of power. So you've got the UDF bunch, think about Paul Mashatile, i.e. Holy Trinity, and then that generation versus the younger guys, the so-called Cable Kids generation of the Youth League, the Youth Leaguers generation. They also want in. They also want in. Why would a Ronald Lamola be there versus a Paul Mashatile? So there's also that's happening in the party. And that the party has to think about vis-a-vis a country that is younger and younger and younger. But what about Ndumanana? I accept that question mark. And I think seeing that happening, all those movements, I think say something in terms of the timing. I think the timing is exact by design what some wanted to see. Whether or not this affirms or emboldens the dominant group that wants Ramaphosa or helps people like Zweli Mkhize, again, remains to be seen. This is not a conference I feel I can call, but I do think it's interesting that people like Zweli Mkhize and Lindiwe Sisulu, who've been quite vocal about Ramaphosa, were absent during that particular vote, that important vote in Parliament, where they've said to their members, we will take a stand, and they were absent. And then the stories you hear is, hey, I was getting a text outside, hey, there's a plot. I actually think their supporters are starting to understand what their leadership means. It brings into question how committed they themselves are towards their mission. And I think that's an answer they themselves have to provide to their supporters when this conference begins. On my part, I'll see you at the conference and we'll see what the governing party of the Republic delivers.